Hi. Hi, my name is Amy Carter. I'm from Carter Law Group.
And I'm Heather Davis, and we're so good at this. So today we're going to talk about common sense gun reform and school shootings. So let me start with, I have 3 children. 2 of them are school aged. One of them will be soon. So this is a topic that is very personal for me, and is hard because so many things don't make sense.
Which is why we want to talk about common sense gun reform, because make it make sense.
We're talking from the perspective of I'm a gun owner. My husband and I own several firearms. I grew up with guns. Like, guns have always been in our household. So I am not anti-gun, but I am very much pro common sense gun laws that can help us get out of this mass shooting epidemic that we're in. I think what a lot of people talk about is that gun rights are, the Second Amendment, we have the right to bear arms, and they're absolutely right. We do have the right to bear arms. What can be frustrating, especially as a lawyer, having gone through way too in depth on the Constitution and constitutional law classes, is no right that's guaranteed to us in the Constitution is absolute, right? You cannot walk into a crowded theater and yell fire. There was literally a United States Supreme Court case talking about that. You have a First Amendment freedom to say almost whatever you want, but not whatever you want. Hate speech is not protected First Amendment speech. So there are no absolutes within the Constitution like that when it comes to those constitutional rights. So there are common sense ways that we can bring about change. So universal background checks is one of the ways that we can start to enact some common sense gun reform, right? It can be a very simple process. There are a lot of people who have a lot of great plans and who have put forth a lot of great plans for universal background checks. This is one of those things where, would a universal background check prevent absolutely every single school shooting or absolutely every single mass shooting? No, it wouldn't, but it would prevent some. And if we start grouping all of these little laws together that will prevent some shootings, we're making a big difference in the end. And that's what I think we need to do.
As we say all the time when we're doing these, the law is about incremental change, and that can work both good and bad. We're not going to be able to change everything with one fell swoop, but we can make progress. I'm from a small town in Oklahoma where everyone has a gun. One of the things that I think is interesting is that we were required in school to have gun safety classes. And it was like one of those things like driver's ed, which is another thing that is kind of interesting, because people talk about, it's my sovereign right to have a gun, and so the background check shouldn't keep me from having a gun. But we have tests for someone to be able to get a driver's license to drive a car. We have age limits on when someone is mature enough to handle driving a motor vehicle on the highways. It doesn't make sense that we wouldn't have that for something that is even more lethal than a car.
And that kind of takes us into another common sense law that we talk about in our blog, is having age restrictions, right? Having across the board age restrictions that apply to everything. We have age restrictions for driving a car, for when you can enlist in the military, when you can smoke, when you can drink,
vote.
when you can vote. Thank you. And it's not logical that you would be able to purchase firearms before you could purchase a bottle of whiskey, right? That's nonsensical. And so if we start enacting things that are logical and make sense, we can make progress.
So another thing that goes along with sort of owning a car or being able to drive a car is insuring your car. And so
Mhm.
what that would look like is essentially, if I am going to take on the responsibility, and it should be a big responsibility of owning a gun, then I have to pay for insurance. So if something bad happens, the victims of that can at least be compensated for the horrendous damages that the gun
Mhm.
may inflict.
Yeah. And again, we already put limitations like this on other things. You have to, in the state of Texas and in other states, you have to insure your car in order to legally drive your vehicle. If you get pulled over and you don't have insurance, you get ticketed for not having insurance, right? We have laws setting the minimum levels of insurance that you have to provide. And that's because a car is considered a dangerous weapon, right? Cars can do a lot of damage if they're handled dangerously, if they're not handled properly, if you don't take proper responsibility and care of it. And that's why insurance exists. Same thing with your house. You have to have homeowners insurance. Now, a lot of that obviously is for if a tornado hits your house, you're covered. But there's also provisions in your homeowners insurance policy that if somebody slips and falls and hits their head on your stairs, right, that person can seek out your homeowner's insurance policy for coverage of the medical bills for injuries they sustain at your house. And so it's again a little bit nonsensical that we couldn't require the same thing for gun ownership simply because, Second Amendment. There's also rights to interstate travel, and we have no problems requiring insurance on our vehicles. So it's a little nonsensical that we can't do the same for our guns. Some people might say it's cost prohibitive, and I understand that. And insurance on your guns might be expensive, and that might mean that you're not able to buy as many or own as many or whatever in order to legally have them and legally keep them insured. But we have the same restrictions on cars, right? I can't, even if I could make the car payment on 4 vehicles, I would still have to have insurance on 4 vehicles. And if I couldn't afford the insurance on 4 vehicles, then I don't get to buy 4 vehicles. And my right to interstate travel doesn't automatically mean that I get to buy 4 cars. You know what I mean?
These are just some of the ideas that we have read about and thrown around. We'd love to hear your ideas because it just feels like back to school season shouldn't be the beginning of
School shooting season.
That's nonsensical.
It's nonsensical that when you're doing school supply shopping, you're getting advertisements for bulletproof backpacks. Our children are our most vulnerable population. And as cliche as it sounds, it's also true in that they're our future. And we all understand that this is a complex problem. There's not a simple solution, but there are a bunch of very small logical solutions that together can help the problem move along. To say that we as a country are incapable of solving a problem as complex as this, I did tell Gloria I wouldn't cuss, so I'm just going to say it's BS. It's nonsense. We are capable of solving this problem if we all agree that it's a problem and not just a way of life or
the way it is.
It's just the way it is.
Whatever.
It's not the way it is. It doesn't have to be that way. We can change it. And so if you care about this, there are a ton of resources out there. Everytown.org is one of them. Gloria has also included kind of a template for an email or a letter that you could draft to send to your representatives in Congress to let them know that this is something that you care about. And like I said, these are just a few solutions that are out there. There are a ton of them. As always, do your own research. Let us know what your thoughts are.